March 16th, 1945, 8:00 a.m., Moselle Rhine Triangle. A line of P-47 Thunderbolts drops through morning haze at 500 miles per hour. 20 feet above the ground, Arthur Davis fires rockets at a Luftwaffe airfield he can almost touch. His wingman flies 3 feet to his left. At 500 miles per hour, there is no room for error. One twitch of the stick means collision. 1 second of hesitation means the Rhine crossing fails and the war drags into summer. The blast erupts directly beneath them. Shrapnel screams past his canopy. His wingman disappears vaporized in a fireball before Davis can process what happened. He pulls up through burning debris and blood-streaked smoke. This is not aerial combat. This is controlled suicide. The only way to destroy the Luftwaffe is to fly so low that survival becomes mathematically impossible. Statistically, replacement pilots have a life expectancy of 2 missions. He has 1 left. Patton's Third Army waits below. 900 German aircraft sit ready to slaughter them. If the 362nd Fighter Group fails in the next 4 hours, thousands die on the Rhine and the invasion collapses. Davis's hands shake. The stick feels slippery. Davis watches his wingman vanish in fire, nothing left but paperwork and an empty bunk. The airfield erupts. Messerschmitts disintegrate. Hangars collapse. Fuel dumps ignite. The impossible flight continues. But what drives men to fly missions they know they won't survive? And how did their impossible tactics shatter an air force and change the course of history in a single day? Spring 1945, Eastern France. The 362nd Fighter Group operates from hell disguised as an airfield. Captured Luftwaffe strips. Mud thick enough to swallow boots. Wreckage everywhere, twisted metal shattered glass, unexploded ordnance half buried in craters. Tents pitched between bomb holes. The wind cuts through torn canvas like a knife. It smells of diesel cordite and wet canvas. Rain pools in foxholes. Artillery rumbles constantly on the horizon, a reminder that the front is never far away. Each P-47 Thunderbolt requires 25 exhausted ground crew working through nights of sleet and artillery fire simply to keep it flying. Mechanics strip parts from destroyed aircraft like scavengers. Fuel trucks arrive half empty, sometimes less. Oil is rationed by the quart. Tools are scavenged from wrecks, improvised from scrap, or stolen from other units. Crew chiefs work by flashlight fingers numb from cold. Welders repair cracked engine mounts with whatever metal they can find. Armorers load ammunition belts by hand, 8 guns per aircraft, 400 rounds per gun, 3,200 rounds total. The work never stops. Sleep is a luxury no one can afford. One crew chief names his Thunderbolt Lucky 13. It survives 42 missions, more than most pilots. Then flak tears the tail off over Koblenz. The pilot bails out at 200 feet. Too low. The parachute never opens. The crew chief watches it fall. He buries the pilot's personal effects. He does not name the replacement aircraft. The Rhine River cuts through Germany like a fortress wall, 150 years unbroken. The Wehrmacht has held it against every invader since Napoleon. If the Allies fail here, German forces regroup behind the river. The war extends into summer, maybe autumn. Casualties multiply exponentially. The math is brutal. Every week of delay costs thousands of lives. Veterans like Ken Bullock and Paul Odell train replacement pilots whose life expectancy is measured in 2 missions. Sometimes 1, sometimes they die on their first. The replacements arrive weakly boys with 200 hours flight time and eyes that still believe in survival. Bunks empty faster than they fill. Personal effects pile up in supply tents. Letters from home arrive for men already dead. Bullock flies 46 missions, a statistical impossibility. He watches faces disappear. Young men who arrived Monday are missing by Friday. He stops learning their names. It hurts less that way. Odell outwardly unbreakable taxis over chicken wire laid across mud to keep his wheels from sinking. Sometimes aircraft sink anyway. He carries faces, he cannot forget their voices, their questions, their fear barely hidden behind forced confidence. One replacement asks him, "How do you make it back?" Odell looks at him for a long moment. "You don't think about it." The replacement dies 2 days later. Engine failure at 50 feet, no time to bail out. The losses are not abstract, they are names carved into memory, friends you ate breakfast with, kids who showed you photographs of girlfriends back home, men who asked you for advice and trusted you to keep them alive. Germany holds the Rhine with flak batteries dense enough to black out the sky, radar-guided guns that track formations from 20 miles away, and a Luftwaffe still capable of killing dozens of Allied pilots daily. Messerschmitt and Focke-Wulf pilots are experienced, ruthless, and fighting for their homeland. They do not surrender easily. The 362nd flies 3 missions a day, bridges at dawn, rail lines at noon, armored columns at dusk. Every mission is lethal. Every mission costs aircraft. One dawn, 8 Thunderbolts take off into morning fog. Only one returns. The pilot climbs out, shaking so badly he cannot unfasten his harness. Ground crew helps him down. He vomits beside the wing. Blood runs from his ears, burst eardrums from a near-miss flak burst. Medical personnel help him to the aid station. He does not fly again. They find him that night sitting outside his tent, staring at nothing. Low dives bring pilots so close they see the expressions of the men below, moments that linger far longer than the sound of gunfire. German soldiers look up, faces registering shock, then terror. Tank crews scramble from hatches. Some make it, some burn. These are not faceless enemies. They are men, scared men, young men, human beings doing their duty same as the pilots killing them. Empty bunks grow harder to ignore. Personal effects are boxed and shipped home. Letters arrive from families asking for details. What happened? Did he suffer? Was he brave? Squadron commanders write responses that omit the truth. They describe heroism and quick deaths. They do not mention burning cockpits, severed limbs, or pilots who screamed on the radio until impact silenced them. The truth is simpler and more terrible. The missions are lethal, the odds are impossible, and the pilots fly anyway because someone has to, and because stopping means the war continues and more men die. The war demands more than anyone has. The pilots give everything and know it is not enough. Across the Rhine, the Wehrmacht waits. Concrete bunkers, artillery emplacements, machine gun nests, and above it all, the Luftwaffe, wounded but not dead, desperate, but still dangerous. If the Allies cannot achieve air superiority, the Rhine crossing becomes a slaughter. Patton's Third Army will wade into the river under constant aerial attack. Casualties will run into the tens of thousands. Everything depends on the 362nd and units like it, exhausted men flying worn-out aircraft on missions that defy survival statistics. The question is no longer whether they can win. The question is whether they will survive long enough to try. The question was no longer whether they could win, but whether they would survive long enough to try. March becomes a storm of steel that never breaks. Thunderbolts shift from high-altitude escort to low-level strikes at 50 feet in altitude, where one mistake means instant death. Tree lines blur past wingtips at 300 miles per hour. Blink at the wrong moment and you fly into a hillside. The margin for error is zero. Radar-guided flak tears through wings. Dogfights detonate at distances where reaction time vanishes. Squadrons fly 3 missions daily, bridges at dawn, trains at noon, armored columns at dusk. The tempo is relentless, unsustainable, lethal. Fuel trucks arrive nearly empty. Forced landings dot the countryside. Pilots taxi over chicken wire laid across mud to keep wheels from sinking. Ground crews work through nights welding cracks that shouldn't be weldable, patching bullet holes with scavenged aluminum refilling tanks from captured German depots. Sleep becomes myth. Coffee is brewed from twice-used grounds. Men lose weight they cannot afford to lose. One mechanic works 72 hours straight. He collapses beside the wing. When he wakes, the aircraft is gone airborne on another mission. It does not return. One dawn, 8 P-47s take off into heavy overcast. Only one returns. The surviving pilot lands with his canopy shattered, blood streaming down his face, shrapnel embedded in his shoulder. He refuses evacuation. He flies the next mission 4 hours later, hands shaking, vision blurred. That night he sits alone in the dark and cries. Davis flies his third mission, a bridge near Koblenz. Intelligence calls it moderately defended. Intelligence is wrong. Flak rises in black clouds dense enough to walk on. His section leader takes a direct hit. The Thunderbolt disintegrates. Wings shear off. Fuel ignites. The fuselage cartwheels into the riverbank. No parachute. No chance. Davis saw him at breakfast 2 hours ago. The section leader showed him a photograph of his daughter. 4 years old. Blonde hair, missing front teeth, smiling. Davis still has the image burned into memory. He continues the run because there is no other option. He fires rockets into the bridge supports. The bridge drops into the river in sections. He pulls up through smoke so thick it blacks out the sun. His hands shake for an hour after landing. He sits in the cockpit staring at nothing. Ground crew asks if he is okay. He does not answer because he does not know. Odell, outwardly unbreakable, trains another group of replacements. 18 years old. Barely 200 hours flight time. They look at him like he has all the answers. He does not. He only has tactics. He teaches them what kept him alive. Never fly straight. Never assume clear skies. Never look back. Check 6 every 30 seconds. Never ignore your instincts. He does not tell them the odds. He does not mention that half will be dead within a week. One replacement asks how many missions it takes to go home. Odell looks at him. The kid has acne. He cannot grow a full beard. Odell does not answer. The replacement is shot down on his second mission. Focke-Wulf, 190 from his 6 o'clock. Cannon rounds through the cockpit. He is 19 years old. Low-level strikes bring pilots close enough to see faces, the nightmare no one talks about. German soldiers scatter as thunderbolts roar overhead. Tank crews bail from turrets seconds before napalm ignites fuel lines. The pilots see expressions: fear, panic, recognition of death approaching at 400 miles per hour. These are not faceless enemies. They are men, young men, terrified men. On one attack, Odell watches napalm pour into an open tank hatch and ignite a sight that will trouble him far longer than any mission report. The tank commander tries to climb out. He gets halfway. The flames reach him. He convulses, stops. Odell is 20 feet away, close enough to see everything, close enough to smell burning flesh, close enough to hear screaming that cuts off too suddenly. Odell completes the mission. He files the report: 1 enemy armor unit destroyed by incendiary munitions. He does not sleep that night. When sleep finally comes, it brings the tank commander burning, screaming, dying. The dream repeats for decades. These moments linger longer than gunfire. They replay in silence, in darkness. Between missions, losses mount with mathematical precision. The 362nd loses 48 aircraft in 3 weeks, 1 Thunderbolt every 12 hours. Bullock writes 22 letters to families, by hand because it feels less cold. How do you tell a mother her son died bravely when you watched him burn alive, screaming on the radio until the flames reached him? Bullock runs out of words. He writes the letters anyway. Odell stops counting losses. Dead is dead. Missing is worse. The Luftwaffe still fights with desperate ferocity. Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs intercept formations daily. German pilots are experienced, skilled, fighting for their homeland. Pilots return with bullet holes in wings, shattered canopies, hydraulic failures. One lands with half his rudder missing. Another brings back a Thunderbolt with over 200 impact holes. The aircraft should not fly. It does anyway. Ground crews perform miracles. They fabricate components that do not exist. They improvise repairs that violate every manual. The aircraft fly. That is all that matters. The pressure builds 3 missions daily. No rest, no rotation, no relief. Men age years in weeks. Hands develop tremors. Sleep brings nightmares worse than waking. Silence fills with voices of the dead. One pilot talks to himself during missions. Another refuses to leave his tent. A third sits at breakfast, unable to eat, unable to move. They fly anyway, because the missions continue, because the war does not pause for broken men. The Luftwaffe still flies. German pilots still kill. The Rhine still waits. The question shifted: could innovation and desperation rewrite the rules of air combat before the 362nd ran out of pilots willing to fly and men capable of returning? The P-47 becomes a battlefield problem-solving machine born from desperation and engineered through blood. Pilots push superchargers into overboost a setting explicitly forbidden by Republic Aviation, hitting 600 miles per hour in dives that make wings shudder and rivets scream. The aircraft was never designed for this. Engineers calculated safe limits. Pilots exceed them daily. The Thunderbolt holds. Barely. Wing-mounted cameras sync with gun triggers to refine accuracy with scientific precision. Every burst is recorded. Every miss is studied. Pilots review footage frame by frame, calculating lead, times adjusting deflection angles, measuring the geometry of death. They learn fast. There is no time for slow learners. Slow learners die. Ground crews improvise with the genius of necessity-stripping Mercedes convertibles abandoned by fleeing Wehrmacht officers for hydraulic parts. Building fuel lines from scrap metal scavenged from destroyed tanks, welding armor plates over cockpits using steel torn from burning vehicles. One mechanic designs a field modification that increases ammunition capacity by 15% using parts that technically do not fit. The modification violates 3 engineering specifications and 2 safety regulations. It spreads across the entire group within 48 hours. Tactics evolve through trial, error, and blood. Ignite tank trailers, first fire spreads faster than crews can escape, turning entire convoys into infernos. Ricochet rounds under armor belts where plates are thinnest, a technique discovered accidentally and refined deliberately. Drop napalm on open hatches to disable crews without direct hits. Suffocation is faster than penetration. Strike fuel depots upwind so smoke blinds defenders. Target ammunition trains at the caboose, the explosion travels forward, detonating car after car in sequence. Hit bridges at center span where repair is structurally impossible and engineers cannot jury-rig replacements. Every tactic is written in the blood of the men who discovered what works and what kills you. Francis Gabby. Gabreski's earlier lessons head-on passes that deny deflection shots, distraction flights that split enemy formations, tank buster sequencing that prioritizes high-value targets shape every decision, every briefing, every mission. Gabreski himself sits in Stalag Luft I by spring 1945, shot down in July 1944 after achieving 28 confirmed victories, the highest tally of any U.S. pilot in the European theater. But his tactics survive imprisonment. His voice echoes in briefing rooms. His methods are studied, memorized, executed. Every pilot in the 362nd flies with Gabreski's lessons burned into muscle memory. His legacy saves lives daily. Flights move like chess pieces, calculated, deliberate, ruthless. Lead sections strike primary targets. Cover flights stay clean weapons, hot eyes scanning for interceptors. If lead is hit, cover assumes strike role immediately. If cover is hit, lead aborts and escorts survivors home. No one is left behind. Not if there is any chance. Any chance at all. Pilots fly 3 missions daily without deviation. Morning rail interdiction, severing supply lines, cratering marshalling yards, destroying locomotives. Afternoon airfield strikes, burning aircraft on the ground where they cannot fight back. Evening ground support, close air support for advancing infantry who depend on them absolutely. They sleep 4 hours if they are lucky, 3 if they are not. Sometimes none. They eat cold rations from cans, beans, hash, mystery meat that tastes like cardboard. Coffee keeps them functional. Adrenaline keeps them alive. Briefings become shorter, stripped of pleasantries and optimism. Intelligence officers point to maps marked with red circles. They list targets in clipped sentences. They estimate losses with numbers that are always optimistic and always wrong. The actual losses are always higher. The Rhine crossing requires absolute air superiority, not containment, not attrition, not tactical advantage. Annihilation. Complete destruction of Luftwaffe capability. Anything less means slaughter on the riverbanks. The 362nd shift strategy with cold calculation. Instead of reacting to Luftwaffe sorties, they hunt aircraft on the ground. Destroy them in revetments. Burn them in hangars. Crater runways so they cannot take off. Kill logistics so they cannot be repaired. It is methodical, systematic, ruthless, and it works with brutal efficiency. Reconnaissance photographs taken after strikes show the results in stark black and white hangars collapsed into rubble aircraft, twisted into unrecognizable metal sculptures, runways pocked with craters 30 feet across. German air operations decline measurably. Sortie rates drop. Interceptions decrease. The Luftwaffe is being bled to death on the ground, but the cost remains brutal and unforgiving. Every mission loses aircraft. Every mission loses pilots. The mathematics are inescapable: destroy the enemy faster than the enemy destroys you, or run out of men before the mission is complete. The question becomes existential: can they annihilate the Luftwaffe before the 362nd annihilates itself? The answer hangs in the balance with every takeoff. But the Luftwaffe's radar made high-altitude strikes lethal, forcing a tactical gamble no manual had ever taught and no pilot wanted to fly. Luftwaffe radar becomes lethal at altitude, forcing a doctrine no manual ever taught. German operators track formations at range. Flak batteries pre-position. By the time Thunderbolts reach the target, gunners have elevation lead time and firing solutions. The sky becomes a killing field. High-altitude strikes turn into death traps. Aircraft explode before pilots see the burst. Formations disintegrate. Survivors scatter. The mathematics are brutal. Altitude equals visibility. Visibility equals death. The 362nd adapts. Pilots dive under 1,000 feet, firing rockets almost point blank to slip beneath the radar curtain. Then 500 feet, then lower 20 feet above the grass. They fire rockets from distances measured in seconds. They skim grass at speeds that allow no margin for error. Airfield defenses cannot depress guns fast enough. Gunners track too slow. Pilots are already gone before triggers can be pulled. But pilots risk being caught in their own blast cones. The explosions erupt directly beneath them. Shrapnel punches through aluminum. One pilot loses his landing gear to his own rockets. He belly lands on a muddy field. He walks away. The aircraft is scrapped. Captured airfields reveal the truth. Rows of German aircraft intact, but no fuel to fly them. Messerschmitts, Focke-Wulfs, and Junkers sit parked wingtip to wingtip. Hundreds of aircraft, perfectly maintained, fully armed, completely useless. Germany's synthetic fuel plants are rubble. Refineries are ash. Transport networks are shattered. The Luftwaffe is running on fumes. Not courage, not skill, fuel. The realization changes everything. The 362nd flips defense into offense. Ground strafing becomes the strategy, not the last resort. Hunt them where they sit. Burn them before they fly. Odell leads a section against an airfield near Frankfurt. They approach it 50 feet. Hangars loom ahead. He fires a 2-second burst. Cannon rounds walk across parked fighters. Wings shred. Fuel tanks ignite. Aircraft disintegrate. Napalm canisters drop into an open hangar. The fireball rises 300 feet. The heat buffets Odell's Thunderbolt. The canopy darkens from soot. On one attack, Odell watches napalm pour into an open hatch and ignite a sight that will trouble him far longer than the mission report. A German mechanic sprints from the flames. His uniform burns. He runs 20 yards. He stumbles, falls, does not get up. Odell sees his face, young, terrified, human. The mission report lists 14 aircraft destroyed. Odell files it without comment. He does not eat that night. He sits outside his tent staring at nothing. The war demands the strike. His conscience carries the weight. This is the moral edge of air power. Precision from altitude feels sterile numbers on a report, targets on a map. Destruction from 20 feet does not. You see everything. You smell burning flesh. You hear screaming. The missions continue. The kills accumulate. The weight grows heavier. The Luftwaffe was not beaten in the sky, it was shattered on the ground in a doctrine born from desperation and refined through blood. March 16, 1945. 6,000 Allied aircraft lift into the sky. The operation spans 40 Luftwaffe airfields across western Germany. Every fighter group, bomber squadron, and reconnaissance unit coordinates strikes within a 4-hour window. It is the largest single-day air offensive in history. The 362nd receives its target list at dawn. 4 airfields, estimated 200 German aircraft on the ground. Intelligence warns of heavy flak concentrations. Losses are expected to be significant. Pilots attend briefing in silence. They study maps. They memorize landmarks. They calculate fuel loads. They check parachute harnesses one more time. Bullock leads the first wave. 16 Thunderbolts. They cross the Rhine at wave-top height, so low their propellers kick up spray. Flak batteries open fire. Black clouds erupt across the formation. One Thunderbolt disintegrates there, 1 second gone the next. Another trails smoke and peels away the pilot, fighting for control. Bullock presses the attack. The airfield appears ahead. Rows of Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs parked in revetments. Hangars line the far end. Ground crews scatter. Bullock fires rockets. The explosions ripple across the runway. Aircraft disintegrate. Hangars collapse. Fuel dumps ignite. Secondary explosions tear through the installation. He pulls up through flames. His wingman calls out interceptors, 3 Focke-Wulf 190s diving from altitude, their cannons already firing. Bullock brakes hard left. G-forces crush him into the seat. The Focke-Wulfs overshoot. Thunderbolts reverse and engage. Cannon fire shreds one German fighter. Its wing separates. The aircraft tumbles into the trees. The others flee low on fuel, outnumbered, outgunned. Davis flies in the second wave. His section targets an airfield near Koblenz. They approach at 20 feet. German troops scatter. Anti-aircraft guns track but cannot depress fast enough. Davis fires rockets into parked bombers. The fuel tanks ignite. Secondary explosions tear through the flight line. Aircraft leap into the air and disintegrate. Debris rains down. Flak clips his left wing. Metal peels back. The Thunderbolt shudders. Davis fights the controls. He maintains heading. He completes the pass and climbs away. Warning lights flash. Hydraulic pressure drops. He nurses the aircraft back across the Rhine. Thunderbolts skim 20 feet above grass, firing 2-second bursts that turn hangars into rolling firestorms. Flak shears formations apart, but the attacks continue. Shondell-style spirals drop pilots onto burning runways for 1-minute landings to strafe parked aircraft at point-blank range. One pilot lands wheels up on a taxiway, fires into a hangar, and takes off again. His propeller is bent. He makes it back. Odell leads the final strike of the day. His section targets an airfield outside Frankfurt. They arrive at dusk. Shadows stretch across the runway. Visibility drops. Smoke from earlier strikes drifts across the field. Odell dives through the haze. He fires at a formation of parked Junkers. The aircraft explode in sequence dominoes of flame and debris, one after another. 8 aircraft destroyed in 15 seconds. A flak burst detonates beneath his wing. Shrapnel punctures the fuselage. Oil pressure drops. Temperature rises. The engine coughs, sputters, runs rough. Odell climbs. He coaxes the Thunderbolt back across the Rhine. The engine seizes 10 miles from base. Pistons lock. The propeller stops. Silence. He glides in dead stick landing on a muddy strip. No power, no hydraulics, no brakes. The Thunderbolt slides 300 yards and stops 10 feet from a ditch. The aircraft is a write-off. Odell walks away without looking back. By dusk, the Luftwaffe is broken. The Rhine opens. Patton crosses silently at Oppenheim, losing only 28 men. The German defenses collapse. There is no air opposition. By nightfall, the 362nd tallies its results. 905 German aircraft destroyed, 24 airfields neutralized, fuel depots burning, repair facilities demolished. The impossible flight worked, but victory is always counted in two tallies: what was destroyed and what was lost. Germany's air arm collapses aces dead or captured fuel-depleted training schools empty. The Luftwaffe ceases to exist as an effective fighting force. Surviving pilots abandon aircraft and flee on foot. Ground crews surrender en masse. Airfields are evacuated. The 362nd pushes east to Frankfurt, cutting rail lines and collapsing viaducts. Armored columns scatter. The Wehrmacht's logistics network disintegrates. Supply trains are destroyed, bridges are dropped, roads are cratered. Davis fires rockets into a bridge as armored columns scatter. The bridge drops into the river. Tanks skid to a halt. Crews abandon vehicles. He lands with 3 bullet holes in his fuselage. Ground crew patches them overnight. He flies the next morning. Bullock completes his 46 missions. Orders arrive reassigning him stateside. He is to train new pilots. He does not celebrate. He writes letters to families of pilots who did not return. 22 letters. He writes them by hand. He explains what he can. He omits what he must. One mother writes back thanking him. She says knowing helps. Bullock is not sure it does. Odell flies until May. His final mission is ground support near Munich. German troops surrender en masse. White flags appear by the hundreds. Columns of Wehrmacht soldiers walk west, hands raised. He circles above white flags and burning vehicles. The war is ending. He feels nothing. Who survives Bullock after 46 missions? Davis narrowly. Odell carrying more weight than any aircraft. Who doesn't nearly half the pilots killed, wounded, or taken prisoner. 48 Thunderbolts lost. 187 men. Some bodies are never recovered. The war ends days later. May 8th arrives. VE Day. Celebrations erupt across Allied bases. Pilots drink, mechanics cheer, flares light the night sky. Someone plays a trumpet. Men dance. Laughter echoes. Odell sits outside his tent. He watches refugees and prisoners walk past columns of displaced humanity stretching into darkness. Women, children, old men, the defeated and the liberated indistinguishable in their exhaustion. Yet pilots sit quietly watching refugees and prisoners walk past. Some cry, some stare, some drink in silence. Odell does not join the celebration. Neither does Bullock. Neither does Davis. Victory feels hollow. The cost is tallied. The 362nd lost 48 Thunderbolts, 22 pilots killed, 14 captured, 9 wounded and evacuated. Dozens more carry injuries that will never fully heal, physical and otherwise. Nearly half the squadron. Gabreski returns from Stalag Luftwaffe, his 28 victories in Europe still unmatched. He is thin, gaunt, and alive. His eyes are older. He does not speak about captivity. Not then. Not for years. Davis survives. Bullock survives. Odell survives. But survival is not the same as victory. Survival is waking up at night. Survival is flinching at loud noises. Survival is seeing faces that are not there. The Rhine was crossed. The Luftwaffe was broken, but the pilots who made it possible carried memories no metal could erase. The P-47 becomes the blueprint for post-war air-ground dominance. Its supercharger lineage feeds directly into early jet-age turbine engineering. The Republic Aviation lineage evolves into the F-84 Thunderjet, the first jet fighter designed for ground attack. Gabreski's techniques shape Cold War doctrine. In Korea, he leads F-86 Sabres into Mig Alley and scores 6.5 additional victories, becoming one of only 7 U.S. pilots to achieve ace status in 2 wars. His tactics are taught at every fighter school. His methods become doctrine. World War II's air cost 18,000 U.S. aircraft, lost 80,000 aircrew dead. 3 million tons of bombs reshape 50 cities. The strategic bombing campaign kills hundreds of thousands of civilians. The moral calculus of air power remains contested decades later. Innovation shortens wars, but it also leaves shadows that linger long after the front has moved on. The 362nd Fighter Group is deactivated in 1946. Its aircraft are scrapped or sold. Its records are archived. Its pilots scatter like wind-blown leaves. Some return to engineering, some teach, some never speak about the war. Their families learn not to ask. Odell becomes a civilian flight instructor. He trains commercial pilots for 30 years. He teaches navigation weather emergency procedures. He never flies combat again. He never discusses the war with students. One asks about his service. Odell changes the subject. Bullock works for Boeing. He designs hydraulic systems for the B-52. He is meticulous, brilliant, and silent. He does not discuss his wartime service with colleagues. His personnel file mentions military experience. Nothing more. He retires in 1978. He never attends reunions. Davis opens a machine shop in Ohio. He manufactures precision tools, drill bits, cutting heads, calibration instruments. His work is flawless. His reputation is sterling. He keeps a photograph of his Thunderbolt on the workshop wall. No one asks about it. He dies in 1989. His children find a box of medals in the attic. They never knew. The Rhine crossing is studied in military academies for decades. The strike on March 16th becomes a case study in tactical innovation under pressure. Students analyze the operation. Professors lecture on combined arms integration. Strategists debate its relevance to modern warfare. But the human cost is rarely discussed. The statistics are mentioned, the names are not. Air power shattered the Luftwaffe in a single day, but the pilots who made it possible learned that innovation and survival are not the same thing. In the ruins they left behind, Thunderbolt pilots faced not enemies but people. Air power shattered the Luftwaffe. It cleared the skies. It enabled the Rhine crossing. It shortened the war. These are the facts. But survival carved a quieter truth. Every impossible flight is paid for twice, first in the air, then in memory. The 362nd proved that human resolve paired with mechanical innovation can redefine the impossible. They flew missions no manual taught. They survived odds no calculation predicted. They accomplished what intelligence officers deemed suicidal. But they also learned that victory does not erase what was seen, what was done, or who was lost. The Rhine was crossed with 28 casualties, 905 German aircraft destroyed, the Luftwaffe broken permanently, the war shortened by months, thousands of Allied lives saved. The cost was not measured in tonnage or territory. It was measured in faces, names, empty bunks, letters written, letters received, silence at breakfast, photographs left behind. Davis never forgot his wingman vaporized in a fireball on March 16th. He saw it happen. He flew through the debris. He never learned if the man felt anything. Odell never forgot the mechanic who did not get up. He sees him sometimes in dreams, running, burning, falling. The war ended 70 years ago. The dreams have not. Bullock never stopped writing letters. 22 families. Some wrote back. Some did not. He kept every response in a folder. He never opened it again. They didn't conquer the sky, they learned to respect it. And in that respect, they found the only wisdom war ever offers, that survival is not freedom from memory, it is the obligation to carry it. The Thunderbolts returned to bases across Europe. The pilots landed, the engines cooled, the war ended. Mechanics pushed aircraft into rows. Tarps were thrown over canopies, paperwork was filed. But the flights never did. They continue in silence, in darkness, in moments between sleep and waking, in the sound of distant engines, in the smell of aviation fuel, in the weight of what was necessary and the cost of what was done. The 362nd Fighter Group destroyed 905 aircraft in a single day. They broke the Luftwaffe, they opened the Rhine, they changed the course of history. But history does not record the weight pilots carry. It records the victories. It records the statistics. It records the facts. The rest lives in memory. And memory, unlike war, never ends.